YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. Today we got Seattle Seahawks record predictions going game by game. Also going to do best case and worst case scenario here like we're doing for every single team. We've done almost every single team so far. We're finishing up the NFC West here. And then we'll get on to my playoff predictions, Super Bowl predictions, and more. Got player rankings for the season coming up, so really excited about that. Join us. Smash that like button, subscribe. Make sure you follow our Twitter. Very important NFL updates, and you guys decide a lot of things in future videos, polls. You guys vote for division winners and a lot more. So check it out. Link down below for that if you need it. And playoffpredictors.com is the website we're using. Seattle Seahawks, definitely an interesting team. They were definitely an interesting team last year because they never really had a firm identity on what this team is. Early year, high-powered, maybe the best offense in football with the worst defense in football. And then it almost flipped in the second half of the year where the defense was shutting some teams down. They didn't play the best offensive teams, but they were shutting teams down, and the offense was really shutting itself down there. So, what are we going to get? Can they have the offense, defense on the same page at the same time? That's a tough part. I like, of course, I like Russell Wilson. I like their weapons. Look at their offensive line. They try to improve it. I'd say their interior is improved. You can't say by a whole bunch. Gabe Jackson helps for sure. Damian Lewis is a solid young, still a prospect. Second year, should improve a little bit. Not thrilled about the center position. Always love me some Dwayne Brown. He's aging. There's some injury concern. Not that I'm expecting anything to happen there. I think he's a solid left tackle, right tackle, shell. They could get a little better there. So I don't. The offensive line might be slightly improved. It's really about staying healthy for this team across the board. Chris Carson, Dwayne Brown, across the offensive line, mainly there as well. Defense, look at Jamal Adams. Defense is kind of a problem. The lack of pass rush. I do like Dunlap. They got some young players. Maybe they step up. It felt like last year they actually missed, not a big name, but it felt like they missed Quentin Jefferson. This year, I think they'll really miss Jarran Reed. Jarran Reed was more of a presence guy, and he had production as well. So I do think they'll miss him quite a bit. They need pass rush. Somebody needs to step up, and you do worry about the secondary. I know the fans really wanted them to get better, opposite of Shaq Griffin, replacing Trey Flowers. Instead, it's now Ahkello Witherspoon in Trey Flowers. So I'll tell you, on paper, not saying this is how it actually will be, but on paper, this is the worst pass defense in football, in I think everyone's opinion. Maybe if you're a Seattle fan, maybe not. But I think it looks like it could be what was going on early last year. Jamal Adams' presence, Bobby Wagner. I like Jordan Brooks as well. But yeah, you worry about the pass defense, the secondary, along with the pass rush quite a bit. But they have the star power. It's just the same old story with Seattle over and over again. They have the star power to get them wins, get them into the playoffs, perhaps. But do they have, they don't have that rest of the roster. So that's my problem with them. Seahawks and the Colts, week one. This is the toughest one to predict out of all of them. Usually week one is. But I'm back and forth. Colts video, I picked the Colts. It's honestly a little bit of a gut feeling. I'm going to pick the Colts. It's just something I kind of feel. I see that, Carson Wentz, who's actually had struggles against Seattle, so that would be again, I think this is one of their worst defenses on paper, though, so it's a little different. But, kind of a gut feeling that Carson Wentz actually gets going in week one. People get a little too hyped, right away. Seattle actually will stop the run. That's the way to argue Seattle in this one. They can stop the run, I think. Poona Ford, Jordan Brooks, Bobby Wagner, Jamal Adams is involved in every category. They'll stop the run pretty high level. Not crazy high, pretty high level. So maybe if they take the run away from the Colts, put the game on Carson Wentz, do they have the pressure or the pass defense, the secondary, to stop? I think anybody can throw on them, really. So that's kind of the problem there. Both teams kind of lacking the pass rush. Kind of a gut feeling with the Colts. I think they'll have some success running the ball, even though Seattle will slow it down. I think, it's not too hard to pass on Seattle, especially early year. Titans, Seahawks. I actually picked the Seahawks in the Titans video. Then the Titans went and added Julio Jones. Julio Jones will, anybody adding Julio Jones will give the team a boost. I think specifically in this game, I really worry about the Seattle Seahawks corners. The passing, I should add that, in terms of their secondary, the pass part, because Jamal Adams is not heavily involved in that. So, but mainly the corners against A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. I do think Derrick Henry would have some success on them as well. So I just like the matchup for Tennessee. I think Russell Wilson and company could have some success passing the ball downfield. I got them beating the Minnesota Vikings. They always beat them. That's not a reason to pick them. I don't like that logic when people use that with any game, any team, because, they're not just going to always beat them to the end of time, but seems like they have some success every single year against the Vikings, even when the Vikings feel like they outplay them in a way. But in terms of on the field, I think Seattle could have a very good day airing the ball deep downfield in this game, what they do best. So I'll pick the Seahawks in that one. I got the Niners. Should be a pretty good game. The Niners, you expect them to be pretty healthy here. You worry about health. You worry about health with the whole NFC West, really. Almost the entire, every single team there. We know the Niners got to be, for the most part, healthy in this game. I think a tight game. I think they'll split, so we'll go ahead and get that. I think Seattle has a problem with LA this year, the Rams, that is. Thursday. That's why it's tough here. It is Thursday. This helps the Seattle Seahawks that it's Thursday night at home. That gives you more of a shot because they're very good prime time at home. I just think the Rams give them all kinds of problems this year. And their defense presented some problems for them last year. I think that'll continue with their group of guys. I think mainly Jalen Ramsey's the factor. He has, the ability to lock down one of those receivers. Sometimes those receivers, they're very talented. Sometimes those games where they kind of disappear a little bit. I think it's one of those games. Now you had Stafford in the mix of, and I think they can run the ball well with Akers, but the mix of receivers, playmakers they have, I think presents a huge problem for the Seattle Seahawks secondary. So I'm going to pick the Rams. Seahawks versus Steelers, I picked the Seahawks. And they get going here. I give them a few in a row here. Steelers game's tough, though, because T.J. Watt, Stephon Tuitt, Hayward, those guys can really get after Russell Wilson. Saw that was problems for their offense last year. I don't think the Steelers can take advantage of how you beat the Seattle Seahawks defense, and then they'll score some point. Yeah, they do got the collection of receivers, though. Claypool, Johnson, Juju should name first. So you can argue the Steelers in that one. You can argue maybe that's the game where you start to see more of the the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, because the variety of receivers at the Seattle Seahawks need to try to stop. So I actually can argue both sides on that one, but I'll stick with my gut there with the Seattle Seahawks. Got them beating the Saints. I think an absolute shootout between the Saints and the Jaguars. I think absolute shootouts. I'll pick Seattle in those. One of them's Monday night. That definitely helps against the Saints. Bye week, I got the Packers. Difference in the Packers, Seattle Seahawks, and what will be probably a shootout if Aaron Rodgers plays is the secondary and the pass rush. I like the Packers secondary a lot. I like their pass rush a lot. I don't like either one for Seattle Seahawks. I love both their quarterbacks and their passing games and their running games, but that is the difference in a big game like this in Green Bay. Arizona and Seattle, I actually just had the feeling that they would, so we're kind of fast forwarding here, but either they would split and they would win away games, actually, is what I was feeling here. This one, I was thinking they left the primetime game open. I'm thinking we can see this one get flexed to that primetime, Seattle primetime Seahawks there. Win that one. Arizona gets them the first time around. Just kind of the feeling I had there. Washington's a bad matchup for Seattle. I think that pass rush will get after the Seahawks there. I think it's one of those games we saw late last year where the Seattle Seahawks really struggled to score points, put points on the board, and I think Washington will score enough offensively at home on Monday Night Football here. They get rolling a little bit. I just don't like them against the Rams. I originally picked the Bears against Seattle, and I'm very close to sticking with that because the reason I picked them, I think the Bears do a good job of kind of not allowing quarterbacks to roll out or buy more time outside of the pocket. That's Russell Wilson's game. They do a very good job against those teams, except for Aaron Rodgers, it seems like. And it's similar matchup. Remember the Giants gave problems. 3-4 defense that run a ton of stunts. That gave a big problem to the Seattle Seahawks last year. The Bears almost run the same thing. That was last year. This is this year. I went a little cold on that. Also think the Bears could actually have some struggles with their cornerback play. Jalen Johnson was a phenomenal rookie last year. More responsibilities without Fuller. I think Metcalf, Lockett, Eskridge create some problems. Remember, I was originally picking the Bears, so I'm kind of leaning towards Seattle on that one. So I got them at 9-8. So, it's trying to predict them in the playoffs. It's very close to possibly that 7 seed. It's going to be weird seeing Seattle on the outside if they are. I just don't I don't know how anybody can disagree with me in terms of me not liking the secondary or the pass rush. That secondary is brutal. It's absolutely brutal. The pass defense in general, I should say. And I do worry about the health a little bit. 9-8. If I want to circle back and go best case scenario, definitely give them the Colts game. We could give them, I don't like the matchup against the Rams. We can give them that. Remember, I gave them the Vikings. I gave them I gave him this. I could argue the Steelers. I gave him that one. Saints, Jags. I think I'm thinking they split with the Cardinals. You know, whether it's this way or that way. You know, I'm thinking they split. I don't know if the best 11-6 is more like it, maybe some of you, but that's kind of my best case where I'm at. Yeah, I suppose they can beat the Cardinals twice. 12-5 is probably best case. It's tough because they got the star power. You know, they got the quarterback, they got the playmakers. They don't have the pass rush, the pass defense. Still worry about the offensive line. So that's why I worry a little bit. Worst case, you know, if you got that good of a quarterback and playmakers, I don't know if the worst case gets any lower than, you know, really where my prediction was. I do think the Vikings have a better roster. Seattle probably has the better star power. It seems like they have success against the Vikings. So I'll keep that in worst case even. You can switch that one. Yeah, I'd say worst case. I could give them the Bears game as well. I don't see them going 7-10, but worst case is around that 7-8 win range. But I think where they're really at is that 8, 9, 10 is where they're at. I do think they've had similar rosters where it's like, okay, they need to get better there, here, there, you know. But they still are a good team. They still make the playoffs. They still go on winning streaks because they got Russell Wilson, these guys. So it could be the case. It could be the case again. This actually might be their worst roster. You know, it's not that much different, but this actually could be. That's where we had them at. This actually could be on paper could be their worst roster that we've seen. Not much they could have done this offseason. I think the previous offseason last year is where they really messed up. They had a lot of cap space and they failed to get out there. And I think we're gonna start to see that effects, you know, kind of going forward here. But it's really tough to predict because, you know, I know it's easy to predict what range they'll be in. And I kind of have, you know, I understand what their units are, where they'll struggle. But it's tough to predict, you know, is Russell Wilson going to play like MVP Russell Wilson the entire year? Asking a lot. You know, I don't think the entire year we could say is likely. But if he does, they're going to make the playoffs. You know, if he plays like that majority year, you know, 80%, they're going to make the playoffs. You know, they're going to win more than 9 games probably. I'm almost fully expecting them to struggle in terms of the pass defense. So I keep mentioning that, but that is the main reason here. That it could be around a 8, 9, 10 win team. It's going to be weird to see them if they get, you know, 8 wins though, you know, around there. But that's where I'm at with them. I'm not in love with their roster, but I do love some of the star power they got. I'm always been a big Chris Carson guy as well. I think he's an underrated back, but I question the health at the same time. So it's tough. It's tough there. So we'll see. It's definitely a battle in the NFC West here. But we're going to get through the rest of these videos, and there's a playlist full of them, so check them out. Smash that like button, subscribe, follow us on Twitter, and then we got playoff predictions, Super Bowl predictions around the corner here, some player rankings as well. So yeah, thanks for watching. Goodbye.